I had always trusted Sarah. My wife of 8 years, my partner through every triumph and trial. We had built a life together, woven from love, laughter, and unwavering support. She was beautiful, kind, and ambitious, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and make the world take notice. That was one of the things I loved most about her. So when she landed a major promotion at work, I couldn't have been prouder. She deserved every success, and I wanted nothing more than to see her thrive. But then came Matthew Grant, her new boss. From the way Sarah described him, he was the kind of man who needed the world to revolve around him. Arrogant. Commanding. Always proving he was the most dominant presence in any room. His reputation preceded him. Ruthless in business, unyielding in his ambitions, and, from what I gathered, equally relentless in his pursuit of what he wanted. At first, I didn't think much of him. A man like that wouldn't give someone like me a second thought. I was an IT manager at a mid-sized company, hardly part of his world of high-stakes power plays and corporate conquests. But that changed the night of Sarah's office Christmas party. Sarah had suggested I didn't need to come, that it was just a work event. But something in the way she brushed it off, the way her eyes flickered with an unease she tried to hide, left me unsettled. So I went. The venue was extravagant, an opulent downtown hotel where the chandeliers probably cost more than my car. From the moment we stepped inside, I felt out of place. But Sarah, she was in her element. She wore a crimson dress that clung to her in all the right ways, drawing eyes from every corner of the room. She was stunning, radiant. And I was proud to be the man beside her. Then I met Matthew. Tall, broad-shouldered, and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. His handshake was crushing, his grip a silent challenge. His smile never reached his eyes. "Ah, so you're the famous husband," he said, his voice laced with amusement. "Sarah's told me so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I replied, forcing a smile. "Of course," he said, smirking as if he knew something I didn't. Then he turned to Sarah, his hand settling on her shoulder with a familiarity that made my stomach churn. "You've got quite a woman here. One of the best on my team." It wasn't admiration in his eyes. It was possession. The rest of the evening was a blur of polite conversation and forced smiles, but I couldn't ignore the way Matthew lingered near Sarah. The way his hand would brush against her arm, the way he leaned in too close. She didn't pull away, but I saw the flicker of discomfort in her expression. Maybe she was just trying to keep things professional. Maybe I was imagining things. But the seed of doubt had been planted. In the weeks that followed, Sarah started working late more often. Urgent projects. Last-minute deadlines. The excuses piled up, but something felt off. Then, one night, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while she showered. A message popped up on the screen. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Last night was incredible. Matthew." My heart stopped. I stared at the words, willing them to mean something else. Anything else. But the truth was undeniable. The woman I loved, the woman I had given my heart to, was having an affair. And not just with anyone. With him. For days, I wrestled with what to do. Confront her. Walk away. The initial shock was paralyzing. But as it wore off, it was replaced by something far more potent. Rage. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about him. The smug, self-proclaimed alpha who thought he could take whatever he wanted, including my wife. I wasn't just going to confront them. I was going to make him pay. And as an IT manager, I had access to things people liked to keep hidden. Matthew Grant thought he was untouchable. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. I waited. She came home late that night, her hair disheveled, her eyes clouded with something she tried to hide. But I saw it. Guilt clung to her like a scent, thick and inescapable. "How was work?" I asked, my voice calm but cold. She hesitated for the briefest moment, then forced a smile. "Fine." Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. "Anything you want to tell me?" She froze, her hand hovering over her purse. A flicker of panic crossed her face, quickly masked by feigned confusion. "What do you mean?" I didn't say another word. I simply pulled out her phone, the damning message still glowing on the screen between us. Her face drained of color. "I trusted you, Sarah. I loved you. And this is what you do." Her lips parted, trembling as tears welled in her eyes. She started mumbling apologies, excuses, words that meant nothing. I didn't care. I couldn't. I need space, I said, my voice hollow. Go stay with a friend for a while. She didn't argue. She knew she had no ground left to stand on. When Sarah left the house, my focus shifted. This was never about just her. It was about him. Matthew Grant wanted to play power games. He picked the wrong opponent. The first step was simple. I gathered everything I needed, his fraudulent expense reports, his shady dealings. With my skills, it wasn't hard to trace the patterns of misconduct he thought were buried. A few well-placed emails sent anonymously to his company's board, complete with detailed explanations and incriminating screenshots, were all it took. Within days, an internal investigation was launched. But I wasn't done. Digging deeper, I uncovered a pattern. Sarah wasn't the first. Matthew had a history, a quiet but undeniable trail of inappropriate behavior with female employees. I reached out to former subordinates on LinkedIn, presenting myself as a concerned citizen investigating workplace harassment. 2 women were willing to speak. Their stories were damning. With their permission, I helped them file formal complaints with HR. Matthew's world was beginning to crack, but I wanted to deliver the final blow in person. Using a fake name and email, I posed as a small business owner interested in his company's services. He took the bait, agreeing to meet at a high-end restaurant, no doubt expecting to intimidate me with his presence. When I walked in, his confidence flickered for the first time. "You," he said, his voice laced with disdain. I smiled, taking a seat across from him. "We need to talk." His expression hardened. "I don't know what you think you're doing." I cut him off. "What I'm doing," I said, leaning in, "is taking back control. You thought you could humiliate me. Take what's mine. Get away with it. But you underestimated me." I slid a folder across the table. Inside, the evidence spoke for itself: fraudulent expenses, harassment claims, emails he had sent to Sarah that blatantly violated company policy. He flipped through the pages, his face darkening with every passing second. His jaw clenched. "Where did you get this?" I shrugged. "Doesn't matter. What matters is what happens next." I let the silence stretch between us before delivering the final words. "You're done, Matthew. The board is already investigating you. HR is reviewing the complaints. By this time next week, your career will be in ruins." His hands curled into fists as he struggled to keep his composure. "What do you want?" I chuckled. "I don't want anything from you." His eyes narrowed. "This isn't blackmail. This is justice." I stood up, leaving the folder in front of him. "You think you're untouchable, but you're not. Men like you always think they're the alpha, until someone stronger comes along. Consider this your reckoning." I turned and walked away, my heart steady, my steps unhurried. As I exited the restaurant, a strange sense of closure settled over me. Sarah and I could never go back to what we were. That part of my life was over. But Matthew Grant, he was about to lose everything. 2 weeks later, he was fired, publicly disgraced, his name splashed across news articles detailing his downfall. Legal action followed soon after. Sarah tried to reconcile, but when I looked at her, I felt nothing. The love we had was gone, replaced by something colder, emptier. I filed for divorce, knowing I deserved better. Revenge didn't heal the hurt. But it gave me something else. Control. And sometimes, that's enough.